Presidential funerals. The funeral of a president has what effect on the funeral industry? 12 presidents prior to Abraham Lincoln died, and not much changed in the way funerals were conducted. Prior to the development of embalming, funeral ceremonies had to be held fairly quickly. The funeral service for John C. Adams, second president of the United States, had to be held before word could be gotten to his son, John Quincy Adams, the eighth president. While John Quincy Adams was traveling to his family home, he was notified that the funeral of his father had already taken place. The traditions and rituals that we see in presidential funerals were derived from funerals of royalty. Some of those traditions and rituals included draping the chandeliers and mirrors with black crepe. Also, the coffin would be placed on a highly decorated funeral car or a float and drawn by horses draped in black. A great number of pallbearers and dignitaries would follow and march in procession to dirges played by the Marine Band. During the Civil War, some wealthy Northern families would pay to have the bodies of their deceased soldiers returned home. The development of embalming during this era was a great advancement to the funeral industry. During the Civil War, Dr. Thomas Holmes developed the method of arterial embalming. Embalming was not widely used nationwide due to the lack of training and was only performed by those with a medical background and involved the use of highly toxic chemicals. After the loss of one of Lincoln's high-ranking officers who had been embalmed, President Lincoln was highly impressed with the condition of the body. He was so impressed that when his son Willie passed away in 1862 of typhoid fever, he asked that he be embalmed. When President Lincoln was assassinated, his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, asked that he be embalmed as well. This would make President Lincoln the first president to ever be embalmed. Therefore, embalming changed the way the nation perceived funeral ceremonies by allowing the deceased to be openly displayed, which started the trend that continues today. President Lincoln's body was to lie in state at the nation's capital, and thousands of mourners lined the roads to the Capitol to have the opportunity to view the president's body. The embalming of President Lincoln's body permitted more time to have a more elaborate funeral than those of past presidents. Due to the preservation of Lincoln's body, it allowed the casket to be loaded onto a funeral car dubbed the Lincoln Special. And was transported to other locations, granting American patrons the chance to pay their last respects. Accompanying Lincoln on this journey was his eldest son, Robert, and the coffin of President Lincoln's son, Willie, who had passed away in 1862. On April 21st, 1865, the train would leave, carrying the coffin from Washington, D.C., on its way to Springfield, Illinois, where he would be buried on May 4th. This journey would cover 180 cities, 444 communities, and 7 states before it came to a halt in Lincoln's beloved hometown of Springfield, Illinois. At each stop, the coffin would be taken from the train, placed on a horse-drawn hearse, and taken to a public building for viewing. This journey became known as the greatest funeral in the United States, portraying the great advancement from Adams' immediate burial to tens of thousands of people the opportunity to view the body of the deceased president. After John F. Kennedy's assassination, his wife instructed Chief J.B. Usher to follow the protocol and details of Lincoln's 1865 state funeral. Kennedy's remains were taken to the center of the East Room in the White House and set up on the same catafalque used at Lincoln's funeral. More than 250,000 people filed past the flag-draped coffin. On the day of the funeral, a horse-drawn caisson carried the casket down Pennsylvania Avenue. Mrs. Kennedy, mourners both official and personal, walked the procession along with military escort, with the Marine Band playing, and the symbolic riderless horse with the boots reversed in the stirrups, which was the highest honor bestowed upon the military. They walked the 8 blocks to St. Matthew's Cathedral, where the service was held. He was laid to rest in Arlington Memorial Cemetery. We see many of the same traditions and funerals today: family gathering from far and near, the body lying in state, the family following the casket from the service, the procession to the cemetery. We see much of the same pomp and circumstance in funerals that we've seen in presidential funerals, although on a much lesser scale. We see the same reverence and respect for the deceased, no matter who they are. Embalming had the greatest impact on funeral industry. In all honesty, has much changed in the funeral industry?